Welcome back to the April 2024 digest, where I talk about all the stuff that I consumed in 2024. So let's get straight into it. And I guess also skip right to the end if you're not interested in any of this, because I'll be picking the next show, which is based on viewer recommendations. So anyway, well, not next show technically, I guess, next anything that is on the roulette wheel. Anyway, I explained at the end, skip to there. Anyway, the first thing is Civil War 2024, which is a movie. It's an hour and 49 minutes long, and I watched it on the 15th of April. And I went to a cinema to watch it, which is pretty out of the ordinary, I guess. And I went with a friend as well. Crazy. Um, anyway, so this is a A24 movie. I have a history of, enjoying my A24 movies. If you go to my letterboxd, you'll see that I generally give them a pretty high rating because I generally enjoy them. I believe this is the director who did a bunch of stuff I have liked before, like Ex Machina, I'm pretty sure. Oh my god, what's the zombie? 28 Days Later or whatever. I've seen that. Annihilation I've seen, which I thought was like pretty good, but a bit like over my head. I think I need to rewatch it. So I was very excited to watch this basically. And overall, this is a 3 out of 5. So initially when I walked out of the theater, it was a 4 out of 5, but the more I've thought about it, the less the movie has kind of stuck with me, I guess, and it's settled to a 3 out of 5. So it's like, it's pretty good, nothing too crazy, So one preface to say is that I did watch this with one ear because I had a very bad ear infection at the time and the left ear was completely blocked. So I'm certain that I missed some of the details in the dialogue, and I'm honestly not really sure if I could piece together the very intricate details of where they're going and everything and why they're going certain places. But you know what? I think I got the gist of the movie, so I'm going to comment on it. That's the one preface thing. Anyway, and also I watched this in a theater, so I don't actually have too many notes. So I'm just going to go through like the 10 notes I have here. The first is that this feels very similar or very familiar to a bunch of other movies I've seen in the general premise, which is that it kind of feels like a post-apocalyptic movie, even though it's not technically like an apocalypse or anything, but the society is basically broken down and there's wars on the streets in America and blah, blah, blah. So it feels very similar to things like The Last of Us or The Walking Dead, which are like, you're basically traveling a very long distance to get somewhere that's like your goal. Like you have a goal and the whole movie is basically spent in Civil War, traveling from the starting place, which I have no idea what city it is, all the way to DC to like interview the president before he inevitably gets captured or killed. So it feels familiar is the first thing. It's not necessarily a drawback, but I guess it is. I'm framing it more as a drawback because it's kind of like, I feel like I've seen this kind of story before. Now, obviously, this story is very different to all the other ones, like The Walking Dead and The Last of Us, of course, because the real draw of this movie, or the purpose of it, is like to follow these journalists or these. Actually, they're not. Are they actually? Now I'm thinking, like, are they journalists or are they technically like photographers? I would assume they're journalists or the press, as they say in the movie. So they're the main characters. We follow their struggles of like taking pictures and stuff, and yeah, that's like the general little bit of spicing up of the typical like post-apocalyptic travel formula, Anyway, besides that, the opening scene with the president rehearsing a speech I thought was really cool. It's I don't know, honestly. Okay, my issue with this movie is that I know that there's probably a lot of smart things going on, but I don't know. I haven't thought enough about the movie and I don't have anything interesting to say about it. And I didn't really pick out anything too interesting, which is probably why it's a 3 out of 5. So also my notes here are just like saying this scene was cool and this scene wasn't cool, etc., etc. So don't expect any big thematic analysis or anything. So opening scene with the president rehearsing the speech was really cool. He's basically talking about how, we're going to stamp out this rebellion. And he names like states. I don't remember what states. It was like the United Allies of Texas, California, and blah, blah, blah. We're all coming to get us and we're going to crush them. They already suffered a defeat and we're going to do the finishing blow. And it was really cool. So I like that. A really striking visual is, and also this could be something I misinterpreted. So maybe on a second watch, I'll be like, oh, that's obviously not what happened. But something that I thought was really cool was that the first scene, which we have actually here in the backdrop of this, digest image here, you have like the protesters are like clashing with the police, or I don't know if it's protesters, whatever. Two sides are clashing, and then someone runs in with an American flag, and it's basically a suicide bomber that kills them all. And it's like a very striking visual because you have like this American running with an American flag, just killing a bunch of people, which is obviously nothing I've ever heard of. So it's a very striking visual to see something like that, which I thought was cool. Then in my notes, we skip all the way to the final act, which is, I think, the best act of the movie. Basically, the whole, say, like, I don't know how long this movie is, what I say, an hour and 49 minutes. Probably like the first hour and 20 minutes is like them traveling. It's very slow. They go from place to place, and in each location, they kind of find a group of people who are doing something, and they kind of follow them and take pictures. And that's kind of the general vibe of the first like 2 acts of the movie. And the final act is they get to DC, and it's basically all out total war in the city. You got tanks rolling in, you got like helicopters in the sky that are flying through the city, and eventually you like you follow this like liberation front or whatever they're called all the way into DC, into the White House, into the president's room. Jesus. And all that stuff is really engaging and really well made, and it feels grand, and it feels like a very it feels good. All right, I liked watching it. All right, it's like I'm watching a Marvel movie, but like in real life, and it was really cool. So anyway, that was really cool. I also like the president's last word in the movie, or last words, I guess, which is "Don't let them kill me," because it's like the whole point is like we're gonna get to the president, and we're gonna get like his quote before he dies. What's he gonna say? Is he gonna like regret his actions? Is he gonna say, "Oh, please have some humanity for blah blah blah"? Is he gonna try and justify his actions? But no, in the end, all he did was care about himself. Like, don't let them kill me. Basically, it was kind of cool. I like that. There's also a really cool scene, which I initially thought it was really cool, and now I've seen subsequently everyone basically thinks this is cool. So, you know, it takes a bit of the wind out of my sails when I say this, but there's basically a scene where you run into this really racist guy who's like wearing red glasses, which is a kind of cool fashion choice, I guess. And he basically interrogates all the members of our crew. And he asks, which part of the US are you from? And obviously we have like 2 people with accents. We have like some guy, I don't know actually where he's from, like where he gets his accent from or whatever. But I know there's one guy who is Asian, and there's one guy who I assume is South American, is I think what he said. And basically they're like, they're on the edge of their seat, or we're on the edge of their seat when they're getting questioned, because like, oh my God, is he gonna like be racist because they have accents or whatever? But anyway, so that was a kind of stressful scene. I thought that was kind of cool. There's probably something. Oh yeah, this is like me just talking about what I said before. There's probably something really like there probably is a lot of in-depth, like interesting stuff going on in this movie, but I'd have to rewatch it. The one thing I have is that the young girl, basically, how do I even? There's so much I haven't given context for. There's 2 girls in this image here, right? Like an older woman and a younger girl. The younger girl is kind of like the protagonist, where she's a young photographer or a young journalist or a young member of the press who kind of wants to, you know, do something with her life and pursue the same journey that her hero, the older journalist press member, took to get here. But what happens is that throughout the movie, she progressively is like kind of doing more dangerous things, where she's getting into like the line of fire and everything. And by the right at the end of the movie, she's like basically following right into the entire White House, when even the army that's like escorting her in is like telling her to stay back, and she's not listening. And in the end, this her hero basically pushes her out of the way when I think it's the Secret Service are like shooting at them, and her hero dies. And as she's dying, she's like falling onto the protagonist's young girl, and she takes a picture of her as she's dying. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sure there's something really interesting going on here. But I don't know what it is. To me, it's just like, oh, okay, I guess like there's the simplest reading would be like, oh my God, she's obsessed with like taking a photo. She's like not living in the moment, or maybe, oh my God, journalism is like evil because it's like profiting off of all these destroyed lives or something. I don't know. That's like the basic take. I'm sure there's something more interesting going on. I just don't know what it is. So I'd have to rewatch it. A major drawback of the movie is I think there's no characters that really stand out at all. The one guy that I was like mildly interested in was the old journalist guy, like the really fat, like old journalist guy. He was kind of cool because he seemed like he was the old wise person who like just wanted to get out of all this nonsense, but he kept getting dragged back in and eventually died. But he was interesting. However, like what I said before about how there's probably something more interesting going on that I just haven't picked up on. There's the younger. He's like the same age as this like hero lady, I assume. I don't know any of the names in this movie whatsoever, but the South American guy I was talking about, there's also probably something interesting going on with him, because he's kind of portrayed as like as like a, you know, like a protagonist kind of. We're following him. He's very reliable, etc., etc. He clearly cares about this like young journalist girl who's like substantially younger than him. However, we find out that initially when they met, he hit on her when he was drunk, which is kind of like a bit of a hit against this character. And also throughout the movie, we see a few times where he's very desensitized to the violence and death, and he's kind of laughing at the like terrible things that have happened. And when people die, sometimes he'll laugh and like not really care about it. But also that could be like a coping mechanism where he's seen so much like trauma and stuff that his only way to cope with it is by laughing or having a good time or making jokes, etc., etc. So it's kind of like he's a kind of interesting character that I'm sure there's also, I probably like missed some of the details because of my ear or whatever, but there's probably something interesting going on with him that I don't know. So yeah. And the last thing is again about this like me missing details or not really caring about like the thematic analysis yet. Obviously, this is a very political movie. You know, it's about a fascist president who's taking power, fighting against the states, and you have like a racist character in this. You have like journalists. You got I don't know. It's obviously a very political movie, and I'm sure there's probably a large group of people who are probably going to criticize this movie because it's very like maybe it's very obvious. They'll take like a very obvious reading, like what I was saying before about how maybe the point of the movie is about how journalists are evil because they're like profiting off like the destruction that's going on or something. Maybe there'll be a lot of takes like that. I haven't looked into it besides like I think I watched 2 video essays on it. One was about it and one was like an indirect one about AI used in the promoting of this movie, whatever. But yeah, the thing I compare it to is maybe how people criticize The Boys for, like The Boys, the superhero Amazon show, for being too obvious in its like theming of like being a satire of like modern politics or whatever. I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of analysis of this movie like that, like in that same like quality or regard, I guess, as well. But anyway, kind of disappointing that I didn't get all the details in this. I would be willing to watch this a second time, maybe in like 6 months from now or something when it's on digital. But for now, it's a 3 out of 5. Next up, we have a game. It's been so long since I've had a game on here, but I guess not really that long because I had Raft on here like 2 months ago. But yeah, anyway, Deep Rock Galactic is a game. I played it for 54 hours and I started on the 7th of February and finished on the 17th of April. So for some context, I played this with 2 friends who were the same 2 friends I played Raft with, who were also the same 2 friends I played Left 4 Dead with, and basically all of my other like multiplayer games for a while. Now for people who actually know what Deep Rock Galactic is, I guess for people who don't know, I should give some context, which is that it's basically a first-person shooter where you have different classes and the terrain, which you can I'm kind of pointing to my monitor, which you can't see, but the terrain here in the background is procedurally generated. So basically every time you play a mission, the terrain is different. And you can destroy the terrain. So with bombs and guns and like pickaxes and stuff, you can basically, it's a completely destructible terrain, which is really cool. So the goal is basically each mission has like a certain subtype, like some you'll go around collecting eggs and deposit them in a ship, and some of them you'll fight these bosses, which are called dreadnoughts, and that's the type of game this is. Now, for people who are familiar with the game, I exclusively, for the 54 hours, played the Driller, which is basically the class that goes and can mine things, and that's basically what I enjoy usually when it comes to games like this, and that's what I played the whole time. I didn't swap once. And for the really advanced people who know exactly what I'm talking about, I use the cryo cannon as my primary weapon, and I use the experimental plasma charger as my secondary, which is this one here, which I enjoyed a lot. I like those weapons. They were great. And the criteria for me, I guess we finished playing this game basically when we beat our first elite deep dive, which is basically you do 3 successive missions where you dive into the planet, and then you have to go deeper and deeper, and you retain your health and ammo and etc. throughout the whole thing. So you don't like replenish after missions. And elite deep dives are like more difficult than usual deep dives or whatever. So as soon as we beat the first elite deep dive, which took us quite a bit of effort, then we're like, okay, let's move on to the next game. And that took us around 54 hours. So I feel like I have a decent understanding of like the whole scope of this game, even though I haven't like fully like completed it and gotten all achievements or whatever, which would be kind of insane because there's a lot of achievements in this game that I could never possibly get. But anyway, so overall, this is a 4 out of 5. This is a really good game. This is one of the better multiplayer games I think we've played. Now, generally, the experience is always a 5 out of 5 when I'm playing with my friends. So I guess the 4 out of 5 is kind of a balance of like, oh my god, it's like a 5 out of 5 playing with my friends. And also, I could see myself playing this on my own. Like, I think this would hold up as like something I could play in my spare time on my own, and I'd probably still enjoy it. So I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 overall. Now, I've got some positives and negatives. The positive is, okay, I don't even remember these, so let me not just pretend I'm coming up with them off the top of my head. Okay, one is the progression and the pace, basically. And what I mean is like within a certain mission. So when you're in a mission, I think there's a good balance of the amount of enemies that are coming to attack you and the difficulty of the enemies. So I think if it was all really easy enemies, but there were a bunch of them, it would get really annoying and really fatiguing throughout the match, and that would be pretty annoying, and I wouldn't like it. Now, the other end is, it could be a bunch of really difficult enemies that are coming not frequently. That would kind of be boring, and you wouldn't be too engaged throughout the whole mission. I think the game really nails having a balance of really a lot of really weak enemies that happen quite a lot, but also sporadically having a lot of really difficult enemies that happen every now and then and like change the pace of the action, and also like can get people to come and group together and like fight those bigger enemies. I think the game basically throughout the whole missions, it has like a very good pace to it in that regard, so I like that a lot. Now, the terrain is obviously, like I said, completely mineable. Like you can use a pickaxe. Me as the driller, I had a big drill that I could drill with. That was very fun. And I always enjoy that in any game. So any game that is like voxel based like this, I will love basically almost by default. like it's just so fun. Like you can dig basically, instead of like taking the usual tunnels to get to where the game wants you to go, you can just dig straight there, which is great. Like usually at the end of a mission, instead of going to the drop pod manually, I would like dig back and drill, like basically directly drill there. And it was so fun. And I had like a big charge that would make a giant crater, and that was really fun to use. And also like the fact that the whole terrain is destructible means that when you're going to fight a boss, you can kind of clear out and like make your own like little area for where you're going to fight the boss, and you can dig like a little tunnel to retreat to. Like it's just fun. I love games where you can like destroy the terrain. So that regard was definitely a big positive. Another really positive thing about this game is that everyone in the team feels important. Now in our case, we had, actually, if not always, we had 3 different classes. Like we had the driller. I don't know what the other 2 classes are called, right? I know one was like engineer. I'm assuming one's like a soldier or warrior or something. I don't know. Basically, I was always the engineer. One of my other teammates, I don't know what the class was called, but he had his class, and then my other teammate would like swap between 2 classes basically. And it always felt like everyone had kind of a nice role where you could fight the enemies, but at the same time you could have like a nice supporting thing which would help you out. Like for me, I could like dig tunnels. Like one of my teammates, okay, he would place lights and stuff to light up areas. You could place platforms if you're a certain class. Like one of my teammates, again, like if I was to freeze one with my cryo cannon, he could come in and destroy it really quickly, which is like a cool kind of like team ability, you know. Basically, I think the team balance is like really good, at least for the classes that we chose to play at. So that was fun. Another good thing about the game is that there's basically, as you're going throughout a mission, you like deplete in health, and you're gonna slowly die and run out of ammo and all that. And to replenish your ammo, you basically have to go around mining for something called nitro, which is like this red resource. I was trying to see in this image. Is there any nitro? But no, there isn't. So you have to go mine that stuff and then bring it back to like your little droid that like collects the stuff. And then you can summon down a drop pod when you get enough nitro. I really like this mechanic. So because it forces you to go out and actually like, maybe instead of just going directly to where you're meant to go for your mission, like for instance, fighting a dreadnought or something, it can be beneficial to go around exploring and finding nitro, which is, I think, a really cool idea. So yeah, that kind of element is also really fun. And the last like kind of positive general thing about this game is that I think the lobby itself, which is like a ship you're in basically orbiting the planet you're going to drill on, I think that's it's very fun basically. It's not like a nothing lobby where you're just there and it's like just for scenery or whatever. There's a few things that are like really fun. Like firstly, it's really large and there's a bunch of places you can explore. Like there's multiple levels, different rooms. It's really cool. There's like mini games, like for instance the one I was addicted to, which is called Jetty Boot, which is basically just a knockoff like Flappy Bird, where you got like a boot and you gotta like click and do it, and it's basically a mini game built into the game in this little like arcade thing, and there's like a high scoreboard, and I like that. That was very fun. There's like a basketball hoop where you have to like shoot a barrel and it'll go in the hoop, and it's fun playing that kind of game, like while you're waiting basically for someone to like equip their stuff, or like when you're waiting for people to decide like, oh, what mission are we gonna do, you can like play these games in the background, which is really fun. There's like a bar where you can get drunk, and and the interesting thing is that when you get drunk, there's like even mini games associated with that, like prop hunt or whatever, like in Gary's mod, where you can like be disguised as an object and hide. That was really fun to try out once. You can even, when you're getting drunk in the game, like drinking alcohol, you can also get stat boosts that stay even when you go into like the next mission, which is really cool. So there's like little things like that which you discover. We didn't know these immediately. It took us like a few like hours to actually get into the game, maybe tens of hours to kind of discover this. Which is really cool to have like small things like that you discover the more you play this game. It's kind of fun. What else? There's also like, you can turn the gravity off in the base. You can get like flying jet boots in the base. It's a fun base, so that's great. Now there's 2 negatives in this game, and it's probably the only reason it's not like a 5 out of 5, is that it's a little bit repetitive. Now I played this for 54 hours, and I feel like I could probably play this for another like, I don't know, 30 hours or so. I don't think I could play much more than that, because to me it really feels like, although every time you play, the terrain is like completely random and the enemies that come to you are like completely random, unless you're doing a deep dive, which is like a fixed thing. It really feels like there's like a set amount of mission types, which I'm pretty sure there is. It feels like there's like 5 to 8 like different mission types, and every mission is like some variation of that type. Which is like, it's fun. I enjoyed it for 54 hours. I could probably enjoy it for another like 30 to 50 hours. But beyond that, I'm like, okay, so we're like doing the same thing, just like a little bit more difficult every time. And I don't know. That was a little repetitive, basically. And another very minor kind of negative to this game is that I really wish the game, when you got toward the end of it, which maybe in fairness, I am only 50 hours in, maybe if you get like 900 hours in or something, I just wish you felt more powerful in the end game. to me, it doesn't feel like the difficulty definitely increased, and we were able to adapt that difficult increase. Like we definitely got better as we were playing the game, but I never felt like I had like this big crazy ultimate move that I only could unlock when I got to like level like 100 hours in the game or something. I never got something like that, and it'd be really cool to get something like that just for the fun of it. Which I know a lot of gamers, like gamer culture or whatever, they like difficulty in their games, and they don't like broken games, and they like balancing games, etc., etc. I don't like that. I like to have fun in games, you know. Like when I play Rocket League, I always play Rumble because it's just so fun to have these like random abilities, you know. Like I'm that type of gamer, so I would like something like that in this game. It's probably not for most people, but that's kind of what I would want in something like this. But yeah, anyway, that's Deep Rock Galactic. Now, next up, we have Dune 2021, and we have Dune 2 2021, or Dune Part 2. So if you're interested in this, go check out the other videos on this channel, because I have one particular video where I talk about Dune. It's a very extensive review. I think it was like 45 minutes or something, where I went in depth about basically every thought I had at the time about Dune 1 and 2. So go watch that. So this is just going to be me giving my score, and also just, I don't know, saying my overall thoughts. Now, I also even talked about this in that video, so it's just recounting all that. Go watch it. Now, my basic thoughts on Dune and Dune 2 is that I think Dune 2 is the superior movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoy watching reactions to it a lot more. I think it's a superior movie in that regard. However, I think the beginning of Dune is all the way up there with Part 2 in terms of quality. I think the first like act, or what it basically, before House Atreides falls, I think all that stuff, like the setup, the introduction of the Bene Gesserit, even just settling into Arrakis and everything, all that stuff is really good. And I think it only just falls down a little bit in quality, not quality, but like my interest in it after House Atreides fall. And it's basically like, it basically becomes an on-the-run kind of movie where it's like, oh, you're running across the desert a bunch of times. So yeah, that's my kind of downfall of the first movie. But overall, these are both 4 out of 5. So 4 out of 5 for this one, and 4 out of 5 for this one. But yeah, Dune 2 overall would be higher. I think Dune 2 is very close to a 5 out of 5. It has a few issues with it, just maybe I just need to rewatch it, I guess. It feels like it's, like I said, you know what, just if you're interested, go watch my general thoughts, like I said, on Dune. But there's a few things that just hold it back from being a 5 out of 5, I guess. But maybe on subsequent rewatches, maybe a few years from now, I'll give it a 5. But for now, it's a 4. Next up, and finally, we have Invincible Season 2. So this is a TV series. It's 8 episodes long, and I watched it very quickly from the 27th of April to the 30th of April. Now, for some context, I binge-watched Season 1 of Invincible when it first came out. Like, when it had all finished, I decided, okay, everyone seems to love this, let me just binge-watch it. And I watched all that in like a few days or something, and I thought it was great. Now, in the time since then, Invincible has kind of become a legend of itself, in that it's become a very popular meme. Well, there's been 2 that have been associated that I think of. One is the Think Mark Think, which is like Omni-Man doing this like pose, and Mark is like the destroyed mess, and it's like the final fight. That became a big meme. And also the best meme of all time, it's probably one of the greatest memes ever made, which is Omni-Man twerking. He does like a twerk pose. It's not from the anime. It's like it's just a meme basically. Look it up. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. So anyway, in these few years, basically, the legend of Invincible has been building up in my mind, where I'm like, oh my god, this thing's so great. It even spawned all these memes. Oh my god, crazy. So I was very much looking forward to this. Now, the way they released the show was they did it, as far as I understand, in 2 batches, where they released it for 4 episodes, like they released 4 episodes, and then they took like a big mid-season break, and then they came back with the final 4 episodes, which to me is like kind of weird, and I don't know why it took them like so long to make 4 episodes, and then why they had to take a break after that and make another 4, but it is what it is, and it doesn't affect me because I just binged them all at once when all 8 had come out. So yeah, that's kind of the context of Invincible. Now, I guess another thing to say is that it has been a while since I saw Season 1. So before it, I watched like a recap on YouTube of Season 1. And also at the beginning of every episode, which is a very rare thing for me to do, I actually did watch the recaps that they gave. Because usually they like spoil what's going to happen or whatever, but I needed it. Like I didn't remember that, what was the guy, Rick or something? I didn't know he had a boyfriend called Rick or whatever. Or maybe his name was Rick and he had a boyfriend that had something other than it. I didn't know that character even existed. I completely forgot about it. Stuff like that where I'm like, I don't remember any of this. So recaps. Anyway. Overall thoughts, 3 out of 5. So generally, I think this started out quite boring, where in the first 2 episodes, I was like, why am I watching this? What was the appeal of this? And then I was thinking, I guess the appeal of it was kind of Omni-Man, and like the whole thing of Season 1 was like a mystery. Not a mystery, but like, is he going to get caught? Like, is he going to destroy the world? Like, there were a lot of like intrigue elements to the story like that in Season 1, which were missing at the beginning of this. So it started off a bit weak. I think it ended off a lot stronger, especially when Omni-Man came back into the story and we got some Al and the Alien stuff. All that I think was like it elevated the story quite a bit. So 3 out of 5 overall, on average. Some of it is definitely a 4 out of 5. Some of it is like, I'd say the lowest is probably a 3. It never gets any worse than that. But yeah, on average, a 3. Now, one thing that the show just does so well, so better than any other show, and I love it for it, is the violence, the uncensored violence. This show just has guts and blood and destroyed bones and everything, and I love it so much. It's so refreshing when basically every other show I've seen, even like adult anime and stuff, like for adults or whatever, like even Berserk or whatever, all of this is way more censored than Invincible is, and I love it. I just love how it's just so refreshing, is basically my take. What else? Next overall thought. Basically, there were a few storylines. There were 3 that I found very interesting, that I was enjoying basically everything that was happening, which was the Omni-Man, Viltrumite, Alan the Alien, like that whole storyline. I enjoyed that a lot. I really appreciated the seeing directly after the events of season 1, like what happened to Omni-Man, and seeing him kind of get depressed and wanted to kill himself in a black hole, and then eventually becoming a good guy, and then having a son and everything. All this stuff was just really good. And him like kind of feeling defeated and getting in prison. All this stuff was like fantastic. And also in this same like kind of storyline, Alan the Alien, he was cool. He's basically like he's just an unambiguously good guy, which is just fun to follow. And he's very strong and he's kind of funny, funny looking as well. And what else can I say? I enjoyed when I don't know, it's weird to say it, but when he got beaten up by the Viltrumites and lost his eye was knocked out, and I thought he was dead. I was invested. I was like, oh my god, Viltrum needs to die. So that really got me invested. So this storyline, basically from beginning to end, I thought it was great. And I enjoyed when he got stronger, like a sand. And I love that reveal when the head of the coalition or whatever rips off his thing and he has a mustache. And I'm like, oh my god, it's a Viltrumite because he has a mustache. Oh my god, that was great. The next storyline that was really interesting was, of course, the multiverse villain storyline. That was really cool because we have this initial villain who's introduced. He's not a villain at all. He's actually a good guy who has the power to like get to access basically any multiverse, and he gets a bunch of himself, and he's going to like collect the knowledge so that he can make all the worlds better. But in episode 1, at the end, he sees that the villains are coming up and beating up Invincible, the hero, and he's like, I will not let my empire, whatever, be built on blood. So he like rips his head off, and he becomes his own villain because he was trying to be a good guy to do a good thing. Then he, took off the helmet, blew up everyone. His brain got messed up with all these like different other multiverse versions of him who have had Invincible as their enemy, and he became a villain that way. Now I thought this was really good. Now, initially, I was a bit hesitant because I was like, as soon as it revealed that, oh my god, there's like a multiverse character in this, in like the opening scene of episode 1 of season 2, I was like, oh no, this show that came out in 2021, I think was season 1, I believe. It probably, at that time, the multiverse was like a concept that, for instance, Marvel hadn't really covered much. But now Marvel has covered it quite a lot. So when I saw it was in this, I was like, oh no, did they plan this like 3 years ago when there were no like Marvel multiverse movies, and now we're going to like retread the same like superhero multiverse territory or something? But thankfully not. It ended up doing something interesting with a guy who wasn't necessarily a villain and whose mind was messed up by the multiverse. I think they did a good job of that. That was really good. The final storyline that I thought was really interesting was the superhero boyfriend storyline. Like him and Amber, basically, Invincible and Amber, like having a relationship and trying to figure that out and what is it like when you're a superhero? It's very grounded in that regard, which I thought was cool. And how she's continually supportive and saying the thing that the hero wants to say, which is that it's okay if you go save the universe, just come back when you're done, when you're safe and happy and blah, blah, blah. Let's have time together. But it was really, firstly, it's just so refreshing to have a very understanding partner to a superhero in a story. A lot of it is kind of like, a lot of other stories, you get like drama where it's like, oh my god, he left, I'm going to like cheat on him or blah, 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 stuff like that. Amber is incredibly understanding, which is just very refreshing. And it also ends in a very sad way, which is that they break up because they just can't handle it. But they both are trying their hardest, and it just isn't working out. It's just sad, and I was very engaged in this story. Now, the 2 stories that I wasn't the most engaged in, that I found pretty uninteresting, was Invincible's mum trying to cope with the loss of Nolan, like her husband, Omni-Man. I didn't particularly find that very interesting. And also just the whole changing the setting of Invincible to have him go to college or whatever. I felt like that was kind of a bit underused. We never saw him like really go to classes or any other college life besides just living in a dorm, I guess, and failing his classes. Like there wasn't too much to it, and I didn't really find that interesting at all. And the last overall note is that I think the animation and the action, I think it's perfectly serviceable. It definitely got better as the season went on, and maybe the mid-season thing kind of helped out with that. But it's just like, I'm so used to anime, which is obviously known for its, at least the shonen anime that I typically watch is really known for its like really insane action and crazy animation and stuff. This like doesn't hold a candle to that at all. Like it's good. Like obviously a lot of effort was put into this, and it shows in certain scenes, but it's like not even really comparable to what I'm really used to. So yeah. I guess the animation and action really just wasn't for me, I guess. It was fine. It was serviceable, I guess. Now I have a few miscellaneous notes. So we have, oh, one, this is a very subtle thing, which also I did watch the Blind Wave reaction to this series. And there was basically when, I think it's when we're on Omni-Man's planet or something, we basically flash back to Earth, and there's the Guardians of the Globe, and basically like all these really superheroes, and they're fighting this like giant villain guy, and he makes an unlimited power reference, which is like a Star Wars thing that Palpatine says, and he's like, unlimited power, which I was like, oh my god, they referenced the Star Wars thing, that's so cool. And I was like, oh my god, I can't wait for Blind Wave to react to this. And then they didn't react to it. And I think like they were talking over it or something, or maybe Aaron was saying something, but anyway, that was a little bit of a disappointment, but it was so cool that it was in the show. Oh my god. I like the fast aging bug planet, or bug people, I guess. That was a really cool concept where it's like they kind of think differently from us, and they don't hold grudges, and they like think only of the future because their like lifetimes are so short. That was a really cool concept. I like that a lot. Oh my god, we also have to talk about the insane lizard people fight against the Guardians of the Globe, where basically one episode is like so much shit is like hitting the fan, and you have like the all the really strong and A members of the, or S tier members or whatever of the Guardians of the Globe, as well as Invincible and Adam Eve or whatever her name is. They're all going to fight the aliens on a ship on for coming from Mars or whatever. And then you have like the B team of people who is like Rexplode and Shrinking Ray and Duplicate or whatever. Like these are kind of the lesser powerful ones, and they're basically going to fight against the lizard people or whatever. Like they have like a little army that's trying to invade the Pentagon or something, I think. And this was, firstly, there's a few things to say here. Two things to say, I guess, really. The first one is this was an insane fight that I couldn't believe was happening when I was watching it. I was on the edge of my seat because the characters actually died. Like these are pretty big characters, like Shrinking Ray and Duplicate and Rex, whatever. These are like characters I've seen basically every episode, and they have a lot to do. I guess Shrinking Ray is like less so, but even then she kind of feels important. And they were like dying one by one, like literally they were being crushed to death and eaten and swallowed and like crushed from the inside or whatever. It was like disgusting and viscerally like, oh, this is like gross. And yeah, it was just so evocative to watch those people die, and it was so refreshing. Once again, like I said, with the uncensored violence and the relationship with a superhero, which is nice and refreshing. This like complete, just the killing off of major characters without any build up at all was just so refreshing. You never see it, all right? It's something you always want to see. It's one of those moments where it's like, I wish it happened. I wish Daenerys died when she was charging against not Jesus. I wish Jaime died when he was charging against Daenerys in that one episode. I wish the Guardians died here, and they did, which was crazy. And also, we'll get to the second point here, which you're all thinking, but the like point 1.5 here, which is that this scene where they were fighting against, there was this one like really strong guy there who killed both Duplicate and Shrinking Ray. And almost killed Rex, like ripped his hand off or whatever. He reminded me a lot of Uvogin or whatever his name is, one of the Phantom Troop from Hunter x Hunter, when he's fighting against the Shadow Beast, where it's like this one relatively minor single like villain, like he comes out of nowhere and he just takes out all of these like heroes or like protagonists or whatever, like people on our side, like the good side. And it's like, who is this random guy? How is he doing all this? This is crazy. He just like killed two main characters. Oh my god. So all that stuff was like, I was like, I can't believe I'm watching this on TV. I'm so happy to see this. Then the second thing is that it was a complete fake out, and everyone who was in that scenario survived, which was when I found out the next episode that Shrinking Ray, I think, was alive. I was like, oh my god, this means that Rex is going to survive, which of course is like pretty predictable. And this also means obviously Duplicate is also going to survive. Like clearly there's going to be like another original version of her, then all these are clones or whatever. Obviously they're all going to survive. And that was revealed at the end. Yeah, obviously she's alive. So I was like, the wind was taken out of my sails. I was like, I just watched some of the pinnacle of all of stories ever where, oh my god, they're actually killing off the people. I just never thought they'd do it. To them backtracking the very next episode, and none of them died at all. So that was very disappointing, and I was incredibly close. I was a hair away from stopping watching this show. I was like, I can't believe they did this to me. But anyway, now with a little bit of time and a little bit of like thinking and reflecting, I'm glad they did it. I enjoyed the moment I had when I was like, I can't believe they're doing this, and the fact that they undid it doesn't really take that much away from it. I'm happy with it. Anyway, next is that I understand that the whole point of Mark being invincible, or like the whole premise of the show, is that he's holding back the whole time, and he's not like I don't what's like the opposite of invincible. It's not like he's like One Punch Man or something who can like beat up people. He's invincible. He can take the damage and he'll always come back or whatever. I get it, all right, but I wish he was stronger. I wish he had a fight where he was like dominating the fight and like always in control or something. We never get that, right? He's always like on the back foot and he's always holding back, and it's just not the best. Even in the final fight, he's not holding back, but he still just doesn't feel that strong, Like I feel like Omni-Man is like 10 times as strong as him, which is a little bit disappointing, but I get it. It's the premise of the show. It just annoys me a little bit, when I'm watching it. Now we have a few other things, a few minor things. Killing Angstrom. This was some of the best stuff as well in the season. Angstrom is basically that multiverse villain I was talking about, where he's kind of messed up in the mind and he goes to kill Invincible, but at the same time he like basically broke Invincible's mom's arm and was going to kill his like brother, and basically Mark gets really mad and he kills him. Like he loses control. He basically smashes him into a pile of blood. And all that stuff was like really engaging and good stuff. But what I think is really good is Mark reflecting on it afterward, where he's basically walking through a desert, like he's stuck in this like desert planet or whatever, desert universe. And he says like, I thought you were stronger. I think that's like one of the first things he says. And it's kind of like, that is a really interesting line, because it's like, I don't even know why it's so good. It's also the title of the episode, so obviously they realize how good it is as well. But it's like, it's obviously cope, like he's coping, but it's also like him wishing that he was stronger, wishing the villain that he wanted to beat, he wishes he was stronger so that he would have survived, because he didn't want to kill him, and he killed him thinking that the person he was fighting was a monster, when in reality he was the monster himself. It's really, you could probably make a video essay on this title. Maybe someone has, like, I thought you were stronger, but it was really evocative to hear him say that. And he says a few other things as well, which are really cool. Like, he told me he was stronger. I wanted to kill him, but I didn't know if I could. Like, these are all like copes, but they're also like portraying Invincible, seeing himself as the monster to this guy who was kind of helpless, but he thought he was more powerful than he actually was. It's good stuff. I really like it a lot. What else? Oh, it was really cool also when the Guardians of the Globe from the future like came to rescue him and send him back to his planet. It was also really cool and interesting and novel and refreshing and all these like positive words that future Eve came out of nowhere. It said like, it gave this confession that seemingly to the audience feels like it comes out of nowhere, which is her saying that she loves him and that he needs to basically settle Eve's mind by telling her if she loves him or if he loves her or if he doesn't. And it just comes out of nowhere because there's no like hint really, besides like stuff that it was in season 1 that Eve loves him. So it's like, from Invincible's perspective, it's like, well, that just came out of nowhere. Why, you really want me to do this? And in the flow of the narrative, there's nothing hinting at it this season that she has a crush on him or anything like that. So it comes out of nowhere, but it's really cool. This is one of those really novel things I've never seen before, that Invincible just pulled out of nowhere, and it was really cool to see. 2 minor notes here, all right? So the Immortal, I think his name was, he's basically the hero, the leader of the Guardians of the Globe. He was a bit annoying throughout the season. Like, he's a bit hypocritical, where he's like sleeping with Duplicate or having sex in the shower or whatever, when he's meant to be like this upstanding hero, like the leader, and the leader shouldn't be sleeping with the other members of the team or whatever. I don't know, maybe that's just like my hypocrisy when I'm thinking back, because it's actually not that bad. I guess it was kind of portrayed as bad because we saw it through Rex's perspective. Anyway, I didn't like him. He was annoying. He was like, he was judgmental of Invincible, and he's like, you're going to be just like your father. I know it. I don't trust you, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, when he retired and he was sad because Duplicate died, and his voice was like a bit different, and I was like, oh my god, why did I judge you so harshly? You had a heart inside out this whole time. I'm sorry, Immortal. And I was like on his side, and I felt bad for him and everything. And I was so happy when it was revealed that Duplicate was alive, despite all the stuff that, I complained about before, about how I wish he was dead. It was such a cute scene when she came and they like hugged or whatever. It was cute. I liked it. And then my last note here, which is that the final episode kind of ends with this random archaeologists, like 2 women who go to a tomb and they like revive this mummy or whatever. And then I think Invincible comes and like kills the mummy accidentally or something. Or maybe I like misinterpreted that. That came out of nowhere. And I'm like, what is this? Why are we watching this? Why are we ending on this? Anyway, Just weird, you know? And also, like, Invincible is obviously having a mental breakdown and not knowing who he is and feeling bad and traumatized and everything. And he's, like, flying around the planet, and there's this really weird music they're playing, and I'm like, I don't know if this is, like, a good ending to the season, but, yep, that happened, as they say in the meme culture. But that's Invincible, season 2, 3 out of 5. You know, maybe a 4, you know, maybe. Now we have the rankings, the 2024 rankings so far. So at the bottom, we have Civil War, which was in 12th, and then Invincible Season 2, which would be 11th in the 3 out of 5s. Then we go to the 4 out of 5s, which have Deep Rock Galactic in number 8, and then Dune Part 1 as number 5, and then Dune Part 2 as number 4. So those are the rankings so far. Now we have something interesting and new, which is spinning the wheel. So basically, if you go to eliteari.com, you'll see a bunch of suggestions. You can go and suggest for something for me to watch. Now, basically the process is you suggest something and I'll like approve it or I'll reject it or I'll add it to like my personal list of stuff that I've always been wanting to watch, which won't be counted in this. But basically, I'm going to spin a wheel and I'm going to select them something to watch, which I'm guaranteed to watch in the next month. Now, I have a few rules that I want to talk about first, which is that firstly, it has to be, basically the options that I'm going to choose from are things that are approved by me. So if it's in the approved suggestions by the end of the month, then I'm going to include it in the wheel for the next month. So yeah. Next is that I'm going to exclude things that you can't watch legally. So it has to be stuff that you can either stream or rent or buy. And if it's like rent or buy, it has to be like a decently affordable price that I'm like willing to pay. So that knocks off like a few things. Like I think this month 75% of the options I could include, and I think 25% were like stuff that weren't available, so I had to exclude them. But so that's if it's not in this and it was in the approved suggestions, that's why. The next thing is that the probability of being selected is inversely proportional to the length of the thing. So basically, a shorter show or a shorter thing is like more likely to be selected. But even if a show has 1,000 episodes or 1,100 episodes, you know, in One Piece, for instance, it can be selected. It is possible. It just has a much lower chance. Now, for example, in the wheel that we're going to be spinning, I think This Is England has roughly a 10% chance because it's like a short movie, whereas One Piece has roughly a 1% chance, or a bit lower. Like I think it's like a 0.8% chance or something to be selected, which it might sound small, but my God, if One Piece gets selected and I have to watch that whole thing, Jesus Christ. Anyway. Now, there are a few things I'm going to do, which is, believe it or not, I'm not just selecting one thing by spinning the wheel. I'm going to continue to spin the wheel until the total number of hours of the things that I'm consuming exceeds 4. So, for example, if I press the spin and I roll and I get Naruto, for instance, then that's it. We end there because we've exceeded the 4 hours or whatever. However many hours, 130 hours, whatever Naruto is, we're done there. Okay? But then, for instance, if the next month, we roll again and we get a 1.5 hour movie, then I'll roll again. Like we'll say, okay, I'm definitely watching this 1.5 hour movie, but let's roll again. And then say we get another 1.5 hour movie. Then I'm also guaranteed to watch that next month because that now the total is 3 hours because we got two 1.5 hour movies. And then I roll again. And let's say I get One Piece. Now I'm guaranteed to watch those 2 movies as well as One Piece. Now I might not finish in that month, but you get the point. We're going to keep rolling until we get to an hour exceeded or met of 4 hours. All right. The other thing is just for like technicalities or whatever, the rounding is to the nearest 0.5 hours. So if a movie is like 1 hour and 44 minutes long, it's going to be considered 1.5 hours. And an anime is assumed to have episodes that are 23 minutes long. So yeah, roughly. Like if it's a normal anime, like Garden of Sinners and stuff, for instance, which I don't think is in this because you can't currently watch it. That stuff would depend on like the length of the episodes because they're variable, whatever. You get the general gist of it. So now let's do this. Okay, so you can't see me. All right, so for now, I'm just going to show the wheel so you can actually see what options are here, but we're going to spin it, okay? So this got everything, I think. Now, sorry if I like missed something or whatever, but you know, we got This Is England, Triplets of Belleville, NHK, we got Jackie Brown down here, we got The Irishman, we have a little slither here for One Piece, you know, which might be called, who knows? We have Fallout, we got Sound of Metal, The Godfather, etc., etc. So there's a bunch of options, all right? So get ready. Let's see what happens. Oh my God, I'm on the edge of my seat. What's it going to be? I don't know if you can hear the clicking sound. I'm kind of scared it's going to be something really long and I'm going to have to commit to it. I hope not. But you know what? You suggested it, guys, so it is what it is. Whatever it lands on. Oh my God. Oh, would you look at that? It's a movie. Crazy. Surely, right? Okay. The Triplets of Belleville is the first thing. So now we're going to remove it. Okay. And the Triplets of Belleville is 1.5 hours. So we're going to spin it again. Okay. So get ready. This time, the probability of everything else goes up because, you know, we have one less thing on there. It was a big one. It was a big movie, so... Oh my God. What's it gonna be? Oh my god. Please don't be something long. Oh my god, okay. Dororo, which is, I believe, a Mappa anime, but it might not be. How long is Dororo? Let's see. 10 hours long. Okay, so we're ending that, all right? So we're watching next month is the triplets of Belleville and Dororo. So see you then, I guess.